Hi, I'm Harrison Wise. I am your host today with FOAFing Around With, and today we are FOAFing around with Jamie Schwarz, a brand therapist and founder of BrandTherapy.com, correct?
.coach.
.coach.
Yeah.
So Jamie, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your abridged experience.
Sure. Well, Jamie Schwarz is from where I am now, Westchester, New York. When I went to Colgate University, I was going to become a clinical psychologist, ended up double majoring in psych and philosophy. But then the siren song of advertising called, the Super Bowl ads, and going to work, this is overdressed in an agency. And doing that, I fell in love with headlines, and headlines could change the world in a way that, sitting through 12 years of getting a PhD was not going to give me my immediate needs answered. And over time, I got to work on so many amazing, over 100 brands, pet food space, rental car space, bank space, fashion, luxury, cars. It just keeps going, like as agency life does. And I bounced around through a lot of different agencies, full-time and freelance, over the course of about 12 years or so. During that time, as I kind of moved up the ladder, did the requisite, Super Bowl ads and Cannes Lions and one shows, and very proud of all of that. I kind of started recognizing that marketing in and of itself was not answering everything I needed it to, because a story is great, but it doesn't touch the product. And there's a lot of levels of bureaucracy at an agency to finally get your idea across. But once it does, you're still just telling a story about something you didn't change. And in 2016, I had a pro bono client called Self-Check, which was about breast, testicular, and skin cancer. And I got to create a sister brand for them called Coders versus Cancer and build out a hackathon. And overnight, or I should say, over the course of about 2 months, as we built out the hackathon, my network changed from a marketing-centered one to a startup-centered one. I discovered lean startup method. I discovered product market fit, my new favorite, philosophy in the whole world, and started focusing more on how I could help startups, where I could actually product shift as much as I was market shifting. And over that course of those years, I took clients through Y Combinator Startup School. I got a project development certification, and I became a serial co-founder. If you can't find a good client, make one. So as you know, Harrison, as a company builder yourself, you talk with the right people at the right time, and a company just kind of springs to life. So I've done that 7 times through various different companies. And right now, one of our fellow FOAFers, Chris Hoyer, and I are the co-founders of the Team Flow Institute. We met on Lunch Club. We just started talking. I talked at his Web 3.1 conference, and we just got into this groove of the company he was doing remotely, how I had worked on a habitual gratitude app, and we started putting them together. And Team Flow came out of that. At the same time, right now, I'm also a fractional chief strategy officer for Parallel Worlds, which is an X-Reality craft company in the Web3 space. The reason I fell into Web3 so hard is because back in 2018, I started filing patents. Once I left agencies and they couldn't own my IP anymore, started filing my own patents for a brand mark in the metaverse. What could a visual identifier be in an immersive space? So a trademark for the metaverse was granted in March of last year. Been filing a lot of continuation since then, but basically it's brand stewardship for digital objects. Making sure that an object in an open metaverse can defend itself, share its own provenance, add its own value, create a prosumer economy. And I'm bringing that to life through Parallel Worlds in digital twin space and phygital spaces and a lot of different ways. And I'm also activating the patent in terms of an NFT gallery. I'll be launching, actually, by the time you see this, marked.art, MRKD.art will be up. It's a Kickstarter to start a new kind of NFT autonomous art. So I'm really all over the place. I really feel into that fractional space because I can't work on one thing at a time. Just not in me.
So you mentioned chief strategy officer or fractional chief strategy officer. So would you describe if I ask you what the FOAF are you, what would you say?
I'd say creative strategy would probably be a little better of a fit. Just because of the creative director background. I'm definitely not a strategist in terms of qual and quant and going out there in the world. And I've done synectic method and I've done design thinking, but it's not my specialty. So, why sell myself on that? I'm much more in the positioning space, very much where startups hit that gap where they have they're ready to grow, but they don't know how to get there. I think that's part of the definition of, I've been working with David on helping to define FOAF as well. And we really got to this point where it was, well, what's the pain point with startups in particular? And it is that gap where you are recognizing we are here, we want to be there. But in order to get there, we need a CXO to fill that gap. But we can't afford them right now. We have to be in that place in order to get that CXO that we can't get to unless we have that CXO. A fraction of a fraction, if you have that, then you have access to the talent that can actually make a difference while being able to afford somebody that, would be the same cost as a freelancer.
Awesome. So what kind, in that context, what kind of projects are you looking to be involved in?
Well, as I said, I've kind of been yanked into the Web3 space as hard as possible for a number of reasons. People are really grappling with AI right now. Brand therapy works a lot on using AI to let brands speak for themselves. And I should say that within that discipline, anybody who's looking to use brand empowerment to have the brand even be the go-between of product and market to inform product market shifting, I very much love being in that space. It really doesn't matter the industry. I do lean emerging tech heavy, but as I said before, I've worked on over 100 brands. It's not the brand that is really the concern. It's more, are they interested in innovating? Are they interested in finding a way to make sure that their product is as malleable? That doesn't mean, hey, if you make bread, you keep making bread. But is the way that the product is positioned as malleable as the marketing itself? Because, markets are changing really, really fast.
Yes.
And figuring out who your customer is it's not the same game it used to be. I really do think we left the broadcast era behind. We've kind of hit the maturity level that we're going to with the social media era. And I think we're entering the relational media era. And that's going to require one-on-one relationships with brands, which requires AI, which requires a brand that knows itself well enough to have a disciplined brand voice to provide that AI voice, which is a challenge.
Sure. Wait, so let's just say as a startup founder, I have X budget, and to your point, right? I know I need to scale. I know I need to do something. I could hire a fractional chief strategy, chief marketing. Like, where do you think you best fit in to help that that entrepreneur figure out, like, I need Jamie versus this other
Sure. This is where I think it's really fated that a brand therapist found their way to FOAF, because we align so well in terms of how we interact. A brand therapy session is a 2-hour-long deep dive session twice a month. It's called therapy for a reason. My goodness, do we go deep? But it's also exhausting. So we only do it 2 times a month, but it's chock full of actionable insights.
Mm-hmm.
So, I really am at my best when I'm able to come in, really understand, ask the right questions to get all of the no's out of the way to get to the yes. Hoodwink, a little wink there to Chris Voss. But I think that, from that vantage point of able to come in, give the 2 cents, thanks to 20 years of really different kinds of experiences, and then get the hell out because you can't afford me for longer than that.
Right.
That's the best way to kind of summarize what we as FOAF kind of do in general, and what I've been doing as a brand therapist for a number of years now.
Awesome. So what would you say then is the biggest misconception that people have about fractional in general?
Well, it's up in the air, I think, in terms of, has a person even heard of what a fractional is? But I think what I've determined that what people think a fractional is what people would jump to what they think FOAF is. Mm-hmm. So I think they think a fractional is somebody they can afford, who would come in. But usually when you're coming into this fractional space, you end up using a lot of their time. And a fractional is looking to be there for 2-3 days a week. It's really, it's a very big nominator to go with that denominator fractional. A FOAF is really like, to use the overused term ninja, we come in, we're the SWAT team. We jump in, we are able to, because of our experience. And my goodness, after meeting so many people who are in this FOAF group, it's really amazing how high level the experiences are. We have the perspective to be able to diagnose and triage very, very quickly, and then get the hell out. So you don't have to pay us for that. And I think that's a huge, huge difference. It really comes down to that gap we were talking about before. If you want a fractional, it's because you're almost ready for a CXO. If you want a FOAF, it's because you have a gap that you in no way can afford to get over without that person. And we make that affordable. To get over that huge gap, you need that experienced person. That's what I think a FOAF is.
Love it. Love it. So what would you say then to people who say that FOAF equals freelance?
A freelancer is somebody who extends your current capabilities. I think that, when you bring in a freelancer, you're bringing in a hired gun. That's the same term for all of us here, but they are extending what you already do. If you're running low on copywriters, or you're running low on the people who can run the numbers, they stretch what you can already do. A FOAF is somebody who comes in and fills a gap that you are clearly missing.
And from your point of view, what does a successful fractional hire look like? And how does or would a CEO founder measure that success from your perspective?
Because we are such experienced, heavy hitters when we're coming in, what you're looking for from us is real change. You're looking for a before and after. This isn't about saying, oh, we are looking to hit some sort of number. I mean, that could be it in terms of like, what's the actual thing you want to see? But this is about, did we really reposition ourselves? Did we find the new audience? Did we hit the target of getting on this TV show, or nail that client, whatever, or get the new venture capital fundraise?
Right.
Big asks with big deliveries, and nothing short of success, 100% success.
And do you think that could be accomplished in the short period of time that typical fractional engagements have?
That's one of the wonderful things that I love about how FOAF is structured everything. We can come in and be there for somebody to do a real deep, hard dive real quick. But more often, we're kind of consiglieres that are available, 24/7 with notice, for those half-hour to 2-hour long sprints, to just say, how can I help right here, right now? And then be available to do that again and again as needed, so that this is huge changes can happen all at once. But, usually this is a thing that you invest in over time, because when somebody of our experience says something, there's action to be taken, and there's no reason to pay us for that time in between. You have to take that action.
Right.
So don't.
Right. How would a CEO kind of determine that, like, you are the right fit for them, and especially if they don't have a lot of time to kind of vet?
That's fair. I would say don't leave it up to either of us. That's what I also love about FOAF, is the triage for that, who the right person is done internally at FOAF, because David and the team know what we actually have in our availability. I'm sure this has been brought up in other of our podcasts, where we talk about how, I may be a chief strategy officer, or chief brand officer, or chief communication officer, or chief marketing officer. I've held all of those titles. It's more a matter of, well, what industry is it? What's exactly the goal that you're trying to hit? Is it a combo? Do you actually need one FOAFer, or two FOAFers, or three FOAFers? It depends on what the ask is, but all you have to do is ask any FOAF. Any FOAFer will know to just go to FOAF and bring the ask, and then properly be able to provide. So you can come to a FOAFer and be exactly answered with whatever you need, but then you wouldn't need them to be a FOAFer. What makes us amazing is that we can say, what is that blank, that CXO that you need? FOAF will have the answer. It won't be the person who you ask.
Right.
It will be the organization.
Correct. So what are you most excited about or concerned about for next year?
Besides AI, AI
or AI.
It's still AI. I'm also an advisor for X Reality Safety Intelligence, xrsi.org. We spend an awful lot of time shooting the shit about this, about all emerging tech and the consequences. What we're going through right now is a lot of mass adoption. We've gone past the discovery of this thing exists and I understand it, to how things are getting integrated. Team Flow Institute is another one of those kind of companies doing that right now, and trying to create we're stewards for AI to make it, easy for people to be able to figure out how to adopt. Once those mass adoptions start really happening, we're going to see some major, like, you think this was disruptive this year? 2024 is really going to be disruptive when it comes to the consequences of these things. I think we're going to see, on the hard side, a lot more restructuring. And part of what Team Flow Institute actually does is making sure that that restructuring is done to the benefit of everybody in the organization. You want to increase the values of the people you hire, not fire them and just replace them. Are we going to have an automated world or an augmented world? we want it to be an augmented world. But at the same side, you're going to get a lot more entrepreneurs, a lot of more companies of 1, 2, 3 who have the capabilities of companies who we just saw J. Walter Thompson's last Wonderman, who became Wonderman Thompson, and VML and YNR, who became VML YNR, are now VML. Right. The agencies are shrinking, not because they think they're creating efficiencies, but because it doesn't take that many people anymore to do bigger things. Now we're going to keep inventing new capabilities, and I'm very, very excited. That's the other plus thing that's coming out of 2024. We're going to have so many more amazing capabilities, and what humans are going to be able to do, not AI, but humans with AI. Very, very excited. So two-edged sword, very scared, but very excited, as all disruptions offer.
Exactly. What type of AI tools are you relying on most these days that you would actually recommend?
Oh, sure. So I'm a big follower of Jeremy Kirschbaum, who teaches a lot of emerging tech. And I took his very early class on using OpenAI properly in the sandbox. So I do an awful lot of playing around with, on my own amateur level. I'm certainly not a coder, but I talk with a lot of them to manipulate and create kind of characters. And to that point, character AI is the main go-to I have for teaching my clients how to talk with their brand. We create their proto brand in character AI and then talk with it and try to get it to a point where it then needs to be handed off to a professional to really create the brand voice that, is well beyond my capabilities. I just advise. Beyond that, I think Claude has been a great back and forth between OpenAI for people to use. And I also use, I'm a proud recent diagnosis as ADHD. And I've recently come across reclaim.ai, which handles my calendars. So whenever things get moved around, whatever my tasks are, they get moved for me. So those kind of little automations that now is in my calendar, they're going to start showing up in a lot of other places. So I also recommend Reclaim AI for any human brain, but particularly ADHDers like myself.
Very cool. Very cool. Any last minute thoughts that you want to share? Anything we didn't cover off on that you want to convey?
I would really double down on the amount of disruption happening right now and the kinds of trusted people that any company is going to need to kind of steady the rudders as we go. There's a lot of panic going on out there. And that is, if you're not panicking, you're not looking around. So I totally empathize with what you're going through. We're here to help. Use the help. It's going to get weirder before it gets stable. So ask around, but FOAF is here for you. And I will end with one thing I think that I might have said at the beginning, actually, but I want to double down on is what I really think we are, which is company betterment. There's this thing about, what we work on in the wellness space for ourselves and all these betterment things to drink more water and to be more grateful and to be more mindful. That works for a company too. That works on an organizational level. And what happens on the other end of a company that's just better put together and more purposeful and more in sync together with what we care about? So much more can be done in that space, let alone how that then applies to your consumers, which just exponentially changes the game.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing that, Jamie. And it was a pleasure FOAFing around with you today.
Likewise.